So, welcome everybody to Strategic Solutions. And today we're talking again about that challenge of workers' comp, inactive status, modified light duty, modified work schedule, ADA, and FMLA. And this is the way it works, everybody. When an employee walks in your door with a workers' comp certificate, or let's remember, even if they're not injured on the job, they walk in the door, they call, and they need time off and they're gone more than 3 days getting figured out what their medical certificate is. On that fourth day, they're eligible for FEMLA. On the first day, they're eligible for FEMLA if the certificate says they need to be gone more than 3 days, or they're indicating they've got serious restrictions and you haven't determined if you can bring them back to work with an accommodation because you met with them right away and it was really easy. You got them a chair and a keyboard. If it's not that simple, they're on a leave. Well, you go through the accommodation good faith interactive meeting process to assure there's not going to be imminent harm if you bring them back to work with restrictions, and to verify in the good faith interactive meeting process that they are actually eligible to be accommodated at work with their restrictions because they can show they can perform every single essential function of the job with the restrictions. If the answer to that is no, we have to modify or make it light duty. They are not everybody a qualified individual with a disability, unless the accommodation is going to be we allow modified light duty for up to 60 days for everybody, including workers' comp and non workers' comp people, no more than 60 days or 90 days or 30 days or 2 weeks as an accommodation, because we have a policy that allows us and every employee in our organization to work less than their essential functions for a few weeks or a few months. And that is the accommodation. And maybe they even get FEMLA because they're accommodated for a few hours and then they work from home for a few hours and then they are on leave under FEMLA for a few hours. All of that could be a temporary conditional accommodation for 2 months for everybody in the organization, because you don't want to terminate people who can't perform all the essential functions. You want to give them a work hardening or an opportunity to heal and come back to work and still get paid without having to use FEMLA, because they don't want to be on leave. They want to work. And you've got something for them to do. But never, never, never call that an ADA accommodation qualified individual with a disability status. This is called a temporary accommodation in compliance with our light duty, modified work schedule policy for every employee in the organization, workers' comp or not, that gets to take advantage of this modified opportunity if we have something available for up to a strict end date, including with workers' comp. Then what happens, everybody? They've done their modified duty for 2 months and they still can't come back to work without restrictions. ADA is over now, everyone. You can only be a qualified individual with a disability and protected under the American with Disabilities Act and the state acts too, by the way, they don't vary, unless you can perform every single function of the job that's essential with the accommodation. The minute you start removing functions, you are modifying the job and it is no longer an ADA accommodation unless you've created a light modified duty, modified work schedule policy that supersedes posting a job under ADA denial and gives them a couple more months to get situated to come back to work or identify clearly what the restrictions are in relation to their other job. If you cannot do that, they're going on FEMLA, everybody, because FEMLA will protect their job for 3 months. And that already gives them a window of work time, work hardening to get better. That's what FEMLA's for. So when you've got people that are taking 3 months and want more time, how much more time do you want to give them under that modified light duty, lower work schedule? 2 more months? Okay. Now you just are giving every single employee in your organization 5 months off every year, whether it's workers' comp or not, whether they're qualified under ADA or not, because if they're eligible for FMLA, they're already getting 3. If they're not eligible for FMLA, they're getting 2 anyway, even if they've exhausted FMLA or if they're a new employee. So that's the real challenge, everybody. And the other piece that we're adding to this is inactive status. So when you can't help them anymore and they've exhausted their FMLA and they aren't a qualified individual with a disability because you have to remove essential functions. Do you have an inactive status for workers' comp? You might. Why don't you make one available for everybody that they get up to 2 months or 3 months? Unless you're a workers' comp employee, you can get up to 1 year or 2 years, depending on your state and what the regulations might say. Or you don't even have an end date and you let them stay off on inactive till they're maximally medically improved. So
Yeah.
when we're talking about inactive status and modified light duty as company policies to manage medical leaves for both workers' comp and not workers' comp employees, this is really dictated by the company because there's not a regulation that tells you have to do this. The key is you need to do it for everybody. You can't just do it for workers' comp people and say everybody else who's injured doesn't get access to this policy because why? Why? Wouldn't make any sense. So we really want to think about how much time you're willing to leave a job open and not post it when an employee has been gone 3 months already under FMLA and they want another couple months under ADA and they aren't a qualified individual with a disability. How much more time will you give them off before you apply the American Disabilities Act, which says if you can't perform all the essential functions of the job at a meets expectations level, and that means every single one of them, then you're not qualified individual with a disability and we won't be protecting you under the ADA. Maybe you've got something else we can help you with. So thank you, everybody. I hope that's helpful.